Have you ever felt like after you were painting with yellows, when you started layering in those midtones, your yellow disappeared? Hi everybody, I'm MK, your Italian watercolor friend. Welcome back to episode 3 of my series, Own Your Values. And so why did I come up with this concept is because when you paint, you want to predict your values before you start painting. Episode 1 was all about blues and episode 2 was all about reds. And so today we are talking about the color of light, which is yellow. And let me bring out my tonal values and Masstone scale because this is exactly what this principle is all based on, which is my approach to predict the values, because not every color can make every value. Different colors at different consistencies will give you different values. And so what does that mean in a practical way? It means that if you take, for example, a yellow, right off the bat you can see that yellow sits in the lighter area of a tonal value scale and it doesn't get any darker than value 5. For example, depending then on the shade of your yellow. My paid product includes the exact color names and where they sit on the value scale, but let's just be approximate in this video and I want you to just understand the concept in general. So the yellows don't go beyond value 5 at their creamiest consistency, which I'll be calling Masstone. So the Masstone is like how dark a color can get when it's straight out of the tube. So yellows cannot go beyond value 5 unless you use a darker color like Payne's gray, black, neutral tint. But not only that, you can also use red. So any other color you can use it combined with yellow and you will take it beyond value 5. And for this demonstration, I will be using imidazolone yellow, which is the primary yellow. And I'm using Holbein watercolors because they stay concentrated, they don't spread on wet paper. And when you have highly dispersing pigments, you will notice that your values will be lighter, but there are also ways to work around pigments that run away. I have Memory blues and those ones disperse really fast and they will never be as dark as my Holbeins when I work wet on wet. Also, I would like to invite you to use the chapters. Maybe you're just here for some bits, so you can just skip through the video in case you want to. If not, you can just treat this video as a podcast and hang out with me for the next 20 minutes or so. Okay, like always, I will be starting my demonstration now. Here I have different yellows and I'll be swatching them in no particular order. So I'll be starting with Naples yellow, and I want to say that I really like Naples yellow because for me it's a convenience color. It's nice, it's soft, it's creamy looking, it reminds me of a sunset, and it has a very light value, so I don't need to mix it or anything. It's pure convenience, and I almost treat Naples yellow as if it's an earthy color. I actually don't know if it's technically one of those colors. Whoops, something fell down. But I do want to think of it that way. I can recreate it with a mix of yellow, burnt sienna, maybe a touch of red, just a teeny tiny bit. But I feel like Naples yellow has already everything concentrated in one little tube, so I always go back for Naples yellow. Next I have lemon yellow. Lemon yellow is a beautiful, cool yellow. Recently I don't use it that much, but if I paint greenery, this is the yellow that I'll be reaching for because it stays cool and it just adds that freshness to it. I don't use it that much because it's a bit too cool. And so the reason why now I'm using a normal primary yellow is because there's just less color mixing to do. I always tend to try to warm my lemon yellow up, and that's why I kind of gave up on it unless I need to paint some greenery. But otherwise I am using my primary yellow, which is a super versatile yellow. And yes, so this is my go-to yellow and it's also what we'll be using for this demonstration. After this I want to also talk about transparent yellow real quick, which is this one. Just like the word says, it's super transparent but also gets quite dark in its Masstone, which makes it perfect for painting. You see it gets a little bit brownish. It makes it perfect for me for painting like food, like croissants and that kind of those kind of things that have some kind of glow to it. But with this color, with this yellow, you need to be careful when you mix it because it gets quite punchy and it's not always something that I want to achieve in my paintings. So my safest options are primary yellow or Naples yellow. And then one more color that I want to talk about, actually two more colors. This yellow deep, I always use it when I paint pads. And now you'll be saying, where do you see such a bright orange pad? This kind of orange, yellow deep, mixed with yellow ochre, which I'm going to be showing next, or raw sienna, is very helpful to mix pads for. So the colors that I generally reach for when it comes to yellows are Naples yellow, my primary yellow, and my yellow deep. When I want to warm up my primary yellow, I'll go here. I almost treat it like an orange. Let's say it stops a bit before the orange range, and that's why I find it very helpful. Yellow ochre. The question is always yellow ochre or raw sienna. There is no real answer. Just I can tell you what I prefer. If I'm painting flowers, I'll be reaching for yellow ochre because it's cleaner than raw sienna. And also, like, if I paint pets, I mean, either one doesn't really matter because they look very much the same. This is raw sienna, but the thing is, raw sienna is a bit more earthy. Raw sienna is transparent. Yellow ochre isn't as transparent as raw sienna. So it all depends on your preference. I think either one, they do the same job. So when I paint pets, if I want to darken up this color, I'll go here. I will choose also yellow ochre because it's a bit thicker compared to raw sienna, and that's just a matter of paint consistency and how much body do I want my paint to have. Simple as. Okay, now I'll be dividing the page into 2 sections. I'll keep filming, why not? Let's draw this together. Like always, we have watery mix, milky, creamy, melted butter, and butter. Wet on dry and wet on wet. So like I said, we're using imidazzolone yellow, and we are going to use a watery mix of this color. So here's my watery mix. If I have to describe this watery consistency mix, it's a flowy one. So in the mix, you will see some parts of water and some parts of pigment. You will typically see the halo of the water. And if you tilt your palette, your paint flows freely. So this is my watery yellow, wet on dry, barely visible, because I really wanted to give you that idea of the paint flowing, but we can also make it a bit thicker. So like this. You will still see here there are parts that are more concentrated than others, and that's exactly the watery mix. Anyway, when you tilt it on your palette, that's the giveaway that you're working with a watery consistency paint. And now we're going to work with the milky consistency paint. So let's get more of this yellow. Here I'll be adding it to this puddle of water that's already here. So you see now the paint is more concentrated. It still flows. It definitely has more body. It flows just a little bit less, but it still moves. You see, that's what I mean. It still goes. It can still drip down if you tilt your palette. And I'm making a mess on my page. Oh no. Alright, so let's put in this milky paint. So this is my yellow at a milky consistency. So for creamy, I get it from the well, and then I put it here. And the difference between milk and cream, the cream is not as flowy. You will still see a shine on the paint, but it doesn't move. So this is your creamy consistency yellow. And then we have melted butter. The way to tell melted butter consistency, you only have your water on the brush. You're not going to bring it on the palette. You'll just take the paint from here where you already activated the paint, and this is melted buttery. This is melted butter. And now if we want to work with butter, we'll only take the color from the part of the well that has very little to no water. It's just slightly shiny, and that's what it looks like. This is butter. Some dry strokes. And this is the consistency you usually use for dry brushing. Now we're going to do the same thing wet on wet. So I'm just wetting this entire stripe of paper. Ooh, I went over. Anyways, so let's use a watery yellow wet on wet. So I'm going to my milk. I'm adding some water until we see that paint flow like it did before. So this was our watery mix. And we'll be placing it right here. And at the end, we'll talk about all the results. Now I'll just be working through this wet part fairly quickly because the paper is drying and so the time is limited. So now I'll be using this milk consistency yellow for the wet on wet. And I forgot to say that I'm working on hot press paper. This is a Meeden paper block, which is really good for this kind of exercises and daily practice. But yes, it's hot pressed, so the paper will be drying a little bit faster than a cold press paper. Now we're using a creamy consistency paint. So again, we get our paint, we bring it here, and we'll be adding it right here. I'm gonna add a touch more. Okay. And then now we're working with melted butter. We'll just get it from the pan. So the first thing you can notice is that the paint is not spreading as much as the other consistencies, and it just stays. I am going to dab my brush to release some of the water that's inside the belly, and I'm just dabbing where the ferrule is, so that I don't disturb the paint that's already sitting in the front of the brush. This is our melted butter. It's definitely a different effect compared to wet on dry. Let's get it thicker. Yeah, this is it. Okay, now we'll be waiting for the paper to dry, and then we'll be reading our results. So what do we learn from this kind of exercise? So the first thing you'll notice is the drying shift. On wet, all the colors have dried softer and lighter. And on wet on dry, they definitely dried the way that you place them. And let's say they are easier to predict. You will see some drying shift, but it's not as dramatic as in the wet on dry. And so now the paper is still wet, it's still drying. So for the watery mix of this yellow wet on dry, I landed on value 2, and you don't need to be super precise, but when you paint you kind of want to have a value target, or at least that's how I see this concept. When I paint, I say, okay, I want my highlights, my lighter midtones to be around value 3, then I want my midtones to be around value 7, and then for more contrast I want my darker values to be between value 8 and value 9. Usually value 9 are my accents. Value 10 and value 1 are just like white and black, so these are like accents as well. But I do set some targets, so I know the paint consistencies to use. If you look at it wet on wet, it is definitely lighter than value 2, but it's not white like value 1. I would just say like it's just slightly darker than value 1. One thing that you need to keep in mind is like here you have this chart that has some set values. Between each value you still have a big range of values. There is a gap between each and every value, and this gap in watercolor gets filled in by the help of water. So that's why I say give yourself a value target so you know which consistency to paint with each color. Everything else will follow. The water will help you, will facilitate the merging of the values. Back to the results. If you look at the creamier consistencies like creamy melted butter, you'll be ranging from value 3 to value 4, not really value 5. Value 5 is when you're working with something like yellow deep. There are actually some few spots that I can see with my naked eye here. They're very close to the yellow deep, and so they get quite close to value 5. Like you will never be working with with the primary yellow at this consistency. For that purpose you will just go here to a yellow deep. And I forgot to write the names of the yellows up here. So we had Naples yellow, lemon yellow, primary yellow, primary yellow, and here we have transparent yellow, yellow deep, yellow ochre, and raw sienna. Now we're looking at the wet on dry chart, and we are definitely not working with such darker values. The watery mix of yellow wet on wet, we are way closer to value 1 than value 2. The milky consistency of that same yellow, we can say that we're between value 3 and value 2. The same goes for the creamy mix. It's not quite value 3, but then if you move on to the melted butter, you will find some areas where this yellow it gets on value 3, where you have these saturation peaks, and as well as on value 2 when it's more diluted, like here. If you're looking at a butter consistency, then you are on value 3 for the darkest spots, but then the paint fades away because of the water. One other thing that I want to say, recently I found that online many people are suggesting beginners, intermediates, whoever, to use complementary colors. You see on this tonal value and Masstone scale, if you're using a red and a green together, they work really well because they both have the same visual weight. And what I mean by that is that they both share the same value in their Masstone. So if you mix them, you're not going to go after value 7. You just stay here. And again, you're not going to be super precise on value 7. I'm just giving you a reference point. However, if you're taking a yellow color as your main local color and you use a complementary color, which is violet, purple, is that one thing that comes to attention? Yes, is that the yellows are the lightest colors and the purple sit on the darkest colors. So it's on value 9 and it's Masstone. So if you're working with a yellow as your local color and you're using a purple as your complementary color, you need to be careful. So you need to really take one little touch of purple to make this concept work. You're going to dull your yellows. They are going to lose their freshness. And although I love working with complementary colors and all that, but there are some situations where I myself use some other colors to mute my yellows. The easiest way that I recommend is use a yellow ochre or raw sienna, working with similar colors in their color range, or you can use something like raw sienna, and you know that you are not only taking the pigment down in saturation, but you're warming it up too. But if I really want to take that saturation down and work with complementaries, I'll be either using a purple, but be very careful, and one more pigment that I find that works really well with yellows is actually Payne's Gray, because unlike other colors like neutral tint or black and so on, Payne's Gray is a very gentle mixer and I find that works really well with yellows. That's my personal preference. I hope I explained why in a good way. I don't know, if you have questions, just let me know, but this is just what I've learned from painting. So yeah, this is just my own opinion on complementaries, and I touched base on this yellow. Take it or leave it. Feel free. It's not like whatever I say is the truth. So this is it for today's video. We've talked about the yellows, the reds, and the blues, which are all the primary colors. If you have questions, like always, let me know. Next time we'll be talking about the secondary colors, so orange, green, and violet. I want to thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, hit like and subscribe. That really helps me create more. Have a good day. Ciao, ciao!